we're just about to start. I felt inspired to share with you something that I thought it was not important. Well, good. I thought it wasn't that important until I realized how important it was. And that's why I decided to share with you what I found. And that is about the Earth, our planet, the world. And does it really matter what it is? And I remember in the time when I was a student, we studied many things. And in geography, we had that particular subject about what the Earth is, how it is located, how it rotates, and all that sort of stuff. And we went through history, and we realized that in the beginning, the ancient civilizations of the Hindus, the Chinese, and the different continents of America believed the Earth to be a flat object with a dome on it, basically supported by elephants on the top of a turtle, so a turtle, which they called the city, or the cosmic turtle. And another thing, what the early Mesopotamians actually believed that it is a disk floating in the ocean with spherical sky dome above, and based on that, the first world maps were created, which you can see the image of those ones there. After that, later, we went through approximately 500 years before Christ. The Greeks came to the idea that the Earth was spherical and not flat. And the first one to come with that was Pythagoras, and that was in around the 500 years before Christ, as I said. Influence, actually he opened a school which was a school for people who wanted to study the sciences, and the requirements for the students to enter in was they had to be vegetarians. That's very interesting, I just found that thing. And based on that school, they did many researches, many discoveries. After that, Pluto and Aristotle continued that same trend. So the Greeks basically believed that the Earth was a spherical object. Later we're going through time, I'm just rushing through. We went through the time of the Dark Ages, and I remember in school we studied at the church, and when we discussed about the church in communist Bulgaria, we were talking about the Catholic or the Orthodox Church, but in that particular we were discussing the Catholic idea. The Catholic Church at that particular time believed that the Earth was flat. Even if you try to search today in Google, you won't find that. In a very few sources you'll be able to find the admission that they've agreed that this will be the case. But definitely what they couldn't deny is that they believe that the Earth is a geospherical, or basically the cosmos is geospherical orientated, which means the Earth is the center of the universe, and everything, including the sun and all the rest of the stars and galaxies, rotate around it. And for those who know geography and history, I don't know if you know Fernand Magellan, the person who first circumferenced the globe. In 3 years, he actually was Portuguese, but he started basically sailing from Spain. In 3 years, he managed to go around the globe. However, in the middle, he went with 5 ships, only one survived. 270 people went with him, not many returned, including him. He was killed in the Philippines. So one ship, after 3 years, went back to Spain. And what he is saying is something very interesting. He says, the church says, and he is referring to a Catholic church here, the church says the Earth is flat, but I have seen its shadow on the moon. And I have more confidence even in a shadow than in the church. So that gives me the identification that at that time the church was promoting the flat earth idea, even if they deny it now. As we rush through history, then we come to people like Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, Magellan, as we discussed, Isaac Newton. They were all unanimous that the earth was a spherical object. And Galileo Galileo was one of the first astronomers who managed to look through the telescopes into the night skies. He was almost executed or gone through the Inquisition of the Catholic Church. He was warned. He was almost pronounced to be a heretic because of that. After that, he repented. Interesting stories, but it is for you to read. I'm just giving you quickly the facts. So all this, and Isaac Newton was a Christian man. He was an Englishman, a brilliance in mind. He was one of the fathers of mathematics. He was really a brilliant person. And after that, we're going to the 19th century, and we've got this person by the name of Samuel Rowbottom. So obviously he didn't, he went under the name of Parallax. And he wrote a book in 1849 where the book has actually a mouthful of a title. It says, Zetic Astronomy, a description of several experiments which prove that the surface of the sea is a perfect plane and that the Earth is not a globe. So it's a big title. The only thing is what remained from there is the Earth is not a globe. So this person actually came with the idea that the Earth is spherical again. And that happened in 49. Now, as we progress in time, we come to today. Today, the situation is rather complicated. Because we've got on one hand people who claim the Earth to be a spherical object. On the other hand, I guess probably you'll say, yes, you've got the people who claim to be a flat Earth, but there's not only a flat Earth, you've got a hollow Earth, there is a cubical Earth, there is a square Earth, and there is a donut Earth. So and I'm sure I haven't exhausted every possible shape that we as humans are trying to give to the Earth these days. However, the spirit of prophecy is saying something which I tend to agree. And in the beginning, I really tended to agree with that. And I'm pro the spirit of prophecy. But I'll tell you why I think it is more than what Ellen White says here. She says, where the world is round or flat will not save the soul. But whether men believe or obey means everything. And as our brothers say, I said amen myself to that as well. Because I said to myself, even if I live on a donut Earth, and if I'm saved, what's the matter, really? But straight away I was thinking, Satan is not that stupid, is he? Honestly, Satan is a very intelligent being, and if he's throwing ideas, either spherical or donut or flat or anything, there must be something in it. There must be something. So I started looking into that particular subject, and I went through the spirit of prophecy. I was surprised to find how much the spirit of prophecy had to say about that subject. I couldn't believe that. And first of all, I just want to find out from here how many of us agree that this individual, Ellen White, is an inspired person, that she has been inspired, and that she is a prophet of God. How many? I just want to see our hands. All right, so majority of us believe. For those who don't know, perhaps I'll give you a study maybe in one of our later divine services, so we'll find what she really is. I personally believe, I've been convinced by the fact that whatever she is writing is 110% in unison with the Word of God. And if there seems to be discrepancies between the two, it is not because of her fault, but because of my fault in not being able to understand what the Word of God has to say. And later I come to the knowledge that that's exactly what it is. I am deficient in the knowledge of the Bible. Now, what she is saying, and that really actually I would like to be like a motto of each Bible student, is she says that the language of the Bible should be explained according to its obvious meaning. So she says the Bible is a literal book. Don't put any hyperboles, any pictures, any forms, any images in that. Whatever it says, that's what it is. Unless she says a symbol or figure is employed. So the Bible is literal thing. But sometimes in the Bible there are figures and there are symbols that you have to know when the Bible is symbolic or when the Bible is realistic. Realistic in terms of literal. And for example, many times the people have claimed to me that the flat earth is proven by the Bible or disproven by the spirit of prophecy. Now, if we take this particular method of studying the Bible, we'll probably realize why certain things seem to be different. Now, for example, I'm just giving you one example. There are many examples like this, but there's one here, and it says in Isaiah chapter 11, it says, "And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth." Now, how do we understand that? Do we understand it like a literal saying or like a figurative saying? Do you understand that the Jews are going to be located in four corners on our planet, and they're only there, and they're going to be dispersed from there? Or by the four corners of the earth, we understand that the four directions, or actually the entirety of the earth is included? How do you understand that? I personally, I'm talking from my, you're free to believe and think whatever you think, but I personally think that there is even a program, I think somewhere, one of those media programs that says four corners, which means the entirety of the planet.
East, west, north.
Exactly. That's the direction of the compass, the direction of the planet. So the entire planet, without exception. That's what I believe. And that's what I think is happening today. The Jews and God's people are everywhere on the globe. All right. Now let's go directly to the subject of what she was writing about this. And now first I have to tell you that while Robotham, I mean it's a bad name really to mention in the church so often, but while that person was writing his book in 1849, in late 1880s, that particular idea came into the Adventist church, especially in New York, by two particular brothers, Brother Wilcox, who influenced Brother Brown. So these are the people that she is addressing in her writings. And she is saying, "I learned by letters from New York that Brother Brown has accepted and is now preaching the flat world theory. It is possible that this theory has been brought by Brother Wilcox from England, and that you have accepted it and are teaching it. My brother, our work is to teach the Third Angel's message. Stick to the message. It is a weakness of Elder Wilcox to get hold of hobbies and to stick to some things that we had better let alone. Any kind of a theory or hobby that Satan can lead the minds of men to dwell upon, he will draw their attention to, so that they shall not be engaged in giving the solemn message of this time." So basically what she's saying, what I've highlighted is just giving you a slight clues here, that she's promoting that a message of that kind is a weakness, because that Brother Wilcox has that weakness of holding that message and presenting it. And also she is saying that things like this have to be let alone. That's what she's saying. And I'm not speculating, I'm just giving you the whole thing here. And it says, any kind of hobby like that what Brother Wilcox had of presenting the flat earth theory is a hobby given by Satan to divert attention. So it's a pretty strong language, and again, I think this will be recorded. You can have a look again and see what you think about it. Another one she says, when at one time a brother came to me with a message that the world is flat, I was instructed to present the commission that Christ gave his disciples, go therefore, teach all the nations, etc., etc. And she says, in regard to such subjects as the flat world theory, God says to every soul, what is that to thee? Follow thou me. I have given you your commission. Dwell upon the great thing, the testing truths for this time, not upon matters that have no bearing upon our work. Now, again, she's saying the same thing here, basically. She's saying, so many people say Ellen White was thinking of her own. She said, no, I was instructed. Who instructs Ellen White usually? Either an angel, who is instructed by God to instruct her, or God himself, Jesus Christ. So, basically, she was instructed by a higher power, and definitely coming from the source of God. And she said, what is that to have with you? So, with other words, that's another thing. Let it alone. Let it be. That's what God was saying to her. We are not to present anything that has no bearing to our messages. Another thing I'm going to give you, I'm giving you just a couple of those. I say, a man was presented who had expressed a desire to see me and talk with me in regard to the round and flat earth or world. I sent him a message that when Christ gave my commission to do the work he had placed upon me, that the flat or round world was not included in the message. The world has taken care of his house, the world here below, better than any human agency could care for it. And until the message came from the Lord, silence is eloquence on that question. Now again, what this text is telling me here is that the flat earth theory is not message given by the Lord. That's what it tells me. It might be, it might not, but it definitely, at this particular stage, is not. And there's another one which she definitely says it very strongly. She says, an urgent request, and that's in 1904. Many people say, listen, Ellen White didn't have the light. You know, she didn't have the light. That is 1904. She pretty much had all the light at that time. You know? She had the light in 1904. So she's saying, my answer was, so they were talking about the same matter, my answer was, I have a message to these people in regard to the life they must live in this world, to prepare them for the future life, which measures with the life of God. We have not to do with the question whether the world is round or flat. Very, very specific, very clear. Ellen White is saying, it's not our business, we don't have nothing to do with it. And as we saw, maybe say, well, what is the matter? How could that be affecting me for good or for worse? Well, I just want to ask you one thing. If you believe, or if I believe, that the Bible is promoting one idea and Ellen White is promoting a completely different idea, what would you be tempted to believe? That Ellen White is wrong, right? Because the Bible is right. Now, what will be, just before that, let me have a look if she actually knew what she was talking about, or she had knowledge about the shape of the earth, or she didn't. Because many times we say she really didn't have much knowledge of what she was talking about. Now, here she was saying, and I'm just taking just two of the many of those quotes that I found. She says, as the rays of the sun penetrate the remotest corners of the globe. Now she's using the globe here. And corners at the same time. So God designs that the light of the gospel shall extend to every soul upon the earth. In the matchless gift of his Son, God has encircled the whole world with the atmosphere of grace, as real as the air which circulates around the globe. So she's using definitely the imagery of a planet which is spherical. A globe is something that is spherical. That's what she's saying. Another thing here. Now, usually the theory of the flat earth goes with the idea that the earth is the center and everything rotates around it, which was basically a Catholic idea to begin with. And it starts even from pagan times. That's what the pagans believe as well. Now, Satan knows that this earth eventually will become the center of the universe. When God's throne will come here, and Ellen White says all the stars and systems in the Great Controversy, you can read that, rotates around the deity, around where God is, and God will be on this planet here. Now, what about today? Does this happen today with our planet? It says, the hand of God is continually guiding the globe in its continuous march around the sun. The same hand that holds the mountains and balances them in position, guides and keeps in order the respective planets. All the wonderful glories in the heavens are but doing their appointed work. And the other one here it says, not by its own inherent energy does the earth produce its bounties, and year after year continues its march around the sun. All unseen hand guides the planets in their circuit of the heavens. So the spirit of prophecy is very clear on 2 points. Number one, our planet is a globe. And number two, our planet rotates around the sun. And here comes the clash. People might say, okay, the Bible suggests something else, which I don't suggest that, because I've studied every single objective of what the flat earth ideas come about from the Bible, and they don't suggest any of that. But supposing the people say, well, that's what they believe, that's what the Bible says. But look at what Ellen White says. She says something completely different. Now, here comes the crux of the matter, why it is so dangerous. Why is it so dangerous for me to go on that slippery slope? What will be the last deception of Satan on this planet? Do you know? The very last for God's church. Yes, Sister Barbara?
Christ will come in, like, not everybody will see him. He will be there or there or there.
Okay, yep.
But can I say something about your theory now?
It's not my theory, it's I'm saying the Bible.
The Bible not mention any place globe. The Bible is mentioned only earth. And read Psalm 104 and so on and so on.
That's fine.
So we need to be careful. Sister White was not a prophet. He was a messenger of God. She's saying for herself, I am the messenger of God. Like we all can be. So when we are connected with God, really connected with God, we are messenger of God. And she's saying for herself, I am the messenger of God. I'm not a prophet. You can find.
She is a prophet.
Yes.
She is a prophet. I completely disagree that she is simply.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying, but I completely disagree that I am in the capacity and the power of Ellen White today because I'm giving you a message. No. Ellen White was having the physical and any signs that the true prophet of God could comply with. Yes, sisters?
I was going to say that when Christ comes, his feet will not touch the earth.
That's true. See, that's the last physical deception. But I'm talking about something a bit more subtle. And by the time we come to that, we have been already separated in our own midst. This is what the Spirit of Prophecy says. The very last deception, I'm giving credit to Nathan for helping me to find these messages here, these quotes here. The very last deception of Satan will be to make of none effect the testimony of the Spirit of God. So, with other words, what she is saying is, when she is referring to the testimony of the Spirit of God, she is referring to her writings. She is referring to the testimonies to the church and everything what the Lord has inspired her to write for God's people in the last days. Now, why is it so dangerous? For me, now, bear with me. It doesn't say here that Satan is going to make us believe that the testimonies are rubbish. No, none of those. Even if many of the Seventh-day Adventist churches today are throwing the testimonies in the rubbish bins. But what does this quote say is that we're going to minimize and lessen the importance of the spirit of prophecy. We're going to compare with something perhaps and say it's not as relevant as that. Yes, Sister Martin, did you want to say something? Yeah, that's definitely. I'll take a study, God willing, on one of those subjects.
And there was another one when she was holding a Bible, which reads in the Bible as well. When we went to the US, the Bible is like, I don't know, 10 or 20 kilos. And she was holding it.
With one hand. With one hand.
For hours.
Yeah, and that Bible was approximately half of her body weight. So it's impossible to, without supernatural strength, to do something like this. But what I'm saying here is this. Why is it so dangerous to start minimalizing and cutting off and chopping the spirit of prophecy in these last days? Let me read you another quote here. And that's how the downway road of perdition starts. It says, it is Satan's plan to weaken the faith of God's people in the testimonies. Next follows skepticism in regards to the vital parts of our faith, the pillars of our position. After that comes doubt as to the Holy Scriptures, and then the downward march to perdition. Everything starts very innocent. You just say, she is not really as relevant as intellectual, as knowledgeable as some of the people of today. Or in that fact of the Bible which I understand, which I love. And slowly, and I've seen that pattern many times. The people give up the spirit of prophecy. Slowly, and at the end I see them end up in the world, completely giving up everything. It is very dangerous. Satan wants to make you lose salvation. Why? What is his plan? Why does he really want you to lose? Because he is a coward. Did you know that? Why he is a coward? Because Satan knows, and he knows the Bible much better than each one of us here. He knows the doctrines of the Bible much better than each one of us here. He knows that he is represented by the antitypical goat who was sent into the wilderness. And that goat was to bear the sins of God's people, yeah? And he knows that those sins, the more of those sins you have, the more you are going to suffer and burn in the last day. And by making you giving up your faith, the sins that have been transferred to him come back to you, and he is suffering less. That's why I'm saying he's a coward. Egoistic coward. Because he knows that by you giving up your faith, giving up the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, he is going to suffer less, and you're going to suffer next to him. May the Lord bless us. Amen.